Some mornings in Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom begin with laughter, others with quiet stories of everyday struggles. But this morning was different. This morning, silence carried the weight of something unforgettable. The courtroom door creaks open. An elderly man, perhaps in his early 80s, slowly steps inside. His back is slightly bent. His hands tremble as he grips a worn wooden cane. He clutches an old hat, the kind that's seen many winters, and moves carefully toward the front. Judge Frank Caprio looks up from his files. His eyes soften instantly. Judge Caprio. Good morning, sir. Please take your time. No rush here. The man offers a faint smile. His voice is raspy but dignified. Elderly man. Good morning, Your Honor. Forgive me if I move a little slow. These old legs don't listen much anymore. He finally reaches the stand, places his hat gently on the podium, and exhales deeply. The kind of exhale that carries years of stories. Caprio leans forward slightly, his trademark warmth radiating through his expression. Judge Caprio. You're doing just fine. What brings you here today, my friend? The man glances down, nervously folding his hands. His fingers shake slightly. For a few seconds, he says nothing. The courtroom air grows still. Then in a voice just above a whisper, he says, Elderly man, Your Honor, this might be my last time standing before anyone. No one in that courtroom knew yet what those words truly meant. But in that single moment, even the sound of breathing seemed too loud. Caprio sits back slightly, his usual gentle smile replaced by concern. Judge Caprio. What do you mean by that, sir? Are you all right? The man takes a deep breath, nodding slowly. His voice quivers. Not from fear, but from emotion. Elderly man. I've lived a long life, Judge. Longer than I ever thought I would. But I lost my reason for living a few days ago. The old man continues, his hands gripping the edge of the podium. Elderly man. My wife, my Maria, she passed away last week, Judge Caprio. I'm so sorry for your loss. When the man nods, eyes glistening. Elderly man. Thank you, Your Honor. She was my whole world. 60 years. We did everything together. Every morning, she'd tell me, do the right thing, no matter what, even if it was hard. Elderly man. So when I got this summons in the mail, I didn't want to disappoint her. I thought, I'll come, even if it's the last thing I do. In that instant, the courtroom wasn't about fines or laws or justice. It was about love, about the promises we keep, even when the ones we love are gone. Caprio's hand moves instinctively to his chest, as if to hold back emotion. Judge Caprio. Sir, you came here today even after losing your wife? Elderly man, nodding. Yes, Your Honor, because she always said, never leave things unfinished. I didn't want her looking down thinking I'd forgotten what's right. The man looks up directly at Judge Caprio, eyes filled with loss but also quiet dignity. Elderly man. This may be my last time in a courtroom, Judge. I wanted to face it like a man, the way she would have wanted. Some stories don't need verdicts. Some only need hearts willing to listen. Caprio takes a long breath, blinks back tears, then manages a faint, heartfelt smile. Judge Caprio. Well, sir, you've already done something remarkable today. You've reminded all of us what integrity truly means. That was only the beginning, because what he said next left even Judge Frank Caprio completely frozen. Most cases in Judge Caprio's court are simple. Parking tickets, speeding fines, small mistakes that come and go. But this one wasn't about the fine. It was about a lifetime of love, loss, and quiet dignity. Judge Caprio leans slightly forward, scanning the case file on his desk. The paper reads, Failure to stop at a red light. Fine, $85. He looks up at the man, still standing at the podium, gripping his hat. Judge Caprio. So, sir, you're here for running a red light. Do you recall the incident? The man nods slowly. Elderly man. Yes, Your Honor. It was early in the morning. I was on my way to the hospital. Caprio's eyebrows lift gently. Judge Caprio. To the hospital. Were you ill? The man pauses. His lips tremble slightly before he answers. Elderly man. No, sir. My wife? She was. That morning I got a call. They said her condition had worsened. I drove there as fast as these old bones could manage. I wasn't thinking about the lights, the signs, or the road. Just about getting there before it was too late. In that single moment, the fine on the paper became meaningless. What stood before Judge Caprio wasn't a lawbreaker. It was a husband racing against time, a heart fighting against loss. Caprio leans back in his chair, folding his hands together. His eyes soften, his voice tender but steady. Judge Caprio. I can't imagine how difficult that must have been. Were you able to see her in time? The old man's voice drops, almost a whisper. Elderly man. Barely, Your Honor. I reached her bedside just before she closed her eyes. I held her hand, and she smiled. She told me she was proud of me, elderly man. Continuing. She passed away moments later. If I had stopped at that red light, I might have missed her final breath. The courtroom wasn't just hearing a confession, it was witnessing a man reliving his most painful memory. Caprio clears his throat, visibly moved. Judge Caprio. Sir, the law doesn't always see the heart behind the action. But I do. You weren't reckless. You were desperate to say goodbye. Elderly man. Thank you, Your Honor. I wasn't trying to break the law. I just didn't want her to think I'd stopped trying. It wasn't just about love. It was about duty, the silent promises that outlive us. Judge Caprio looks down at the ticket once more, then sets it aside. He removes his glasses, wipes his eyes discreetly, and looks back up. Judge Caprio. You remind me of something my father used to say. When you love someone, you don't count the cost. You just show up. And that's exactly what you did. The old man smiles faintly, eyes glistening. Elderly man. She always said the same, Your Honor. That love is measured not in words, but in moments. The people in the courtroom aren't just watching a case anymore. They're part of a story. A young man in the audience wipes his face. A woman holding her daughter hugs her a little tighter. In that courtroom, something changed. People came to settle fines and left with something priceless. Perspective. Caprio takes a deep breath and exhales slowly. Judge Caprio. You know, sir, I've been on this bench for many years. I've heard all kinds of stories, excuses, apologies, reasons. But yours is something else. The man looks down humbly. Elderly man. I didn't come for sympathy, Judge. I came because it's the right thing. I owe the city the fine, and I'm ready to pay it. Judge Caprio. You remind us all that integrity doesn't retire with age. Caprio looks at the man, his heart clearly heavy. He adjusts his robe, sighs softly, and speaks again. Judge Caprio. Sir, the law says you owe $85 for this fine. But I say your actions were driven by love, something that no law can punish. Judge Caprio. I'm dismissing this case. Elderly man. Your Honor, I don't know what to say. Judge Caprio. You've already said enough, my friend. You said goodbye in the most beautiful way possible, by being there. What began as a simple case became a moment of humanity, one man's pain transforming into a lesson for everyone who witnessed it. But just as the man reached the door, he turned back and said something no one expected. Words that froze Judge Caprio completely. The courtroom thought the story had ended, but it hadn't. The fine was dismissed. The man was free to go. Yet something in his eyes said there was more to say. Something he had carried for far too long. The elderly man grips his hat, ready to walk away. His cane taps once on the courtroom floor, but instead of moving toward the door, he stops. His shoulders stiffen. He turns back slowly toward Judge Caprio. Elderly man, softly. Your Honor, may I say one more thing? Caprio looks up, instantly attentive. Judge Caprio. Of course, sir. Take your time. The man hesitates. His lips quiver, eyes glisten. His hands shake as he places the hat back on the podium. Elderly man, there's something I didn't tell you. Something I've never told anyone before today. No one in that courtroom knew that what he was about to say would silence even Judge Caprio, the man known for his calm, his wisdom, and his heart. The man takes a deep breath, eyes staring somewhere distant, as if he's seeing his past replay in front of him. Elderly man, voice trembling, Your Honor, the day my wife passed away, I wasn't just rushing to the hospital. I was rushing to make things right, Judge Caprio. Softly, What do you mean? The man swallows hard. Elderly man, that morning, we had an argument. The night before, it was small, something silly about the medicine or the TV. I can't even remember now. But I raised my voice. She went to bed upset. I slept in the chair, elderly man, continuing. When the hospital called, I realized I never said I was sorry, elderly man. So I ran every light, every stop, every rule, not just to see her, but to tell her I was sorry before she closed her eyes forever. The man wipes his eyes with a shaking hand. Elderly man, voice cracking. I held her hand and said the words I should have said the night before. I told her I loved her, and she smiled, Your Honor. She smiled, and then she was gone. Cut to audience members silently crying. A young man puts his hand over his mouth. Even the bailiff looks away, blinking hard. It wasn't just a confession of guilt. It was a confession of love, the kind that outlives every mistake. Caprio leans forward, eyes glistening with tears. His voice lowers, softer, personal. Judge Caprio, Sir, you don't have to carry that pain. What you did, it came from love, and love, in its purest form, forgives itself. The man looks up, his chin trembling. Elderly man, I've tried, Judge, but every night since, I sit by the window and whisper her name. I tell her I'm still sorry, and I ask her to forgive me. Tears begin rolling down his face. The courtroom is frozen. Even the sound of pages turning has stopped. Judge Caprio, softly, I believe she already has. Caprio pauses. His voice breaks slightly. He takes off his glasses, setting them aside. Judge Caprio, you see, sir, I lost someone close too. My father once told me, when you speak from the heart, the heavens listen. You did that. She heard you. The old man's face softens. The weight seems to lift just a little. It was no longer a courtroom. It was a sanctuary. Two men connected by loss, by love, by the ache of memory. The man takes a slow, trembling breath. The air in the courtroom feels sacred, heavy with truth, yet somehow peaceful. Elderly man, thank you, Your Honor. You've given me more peace in these few minutes than I've had in years. Caprio smiles faintly, but his eyes remain wet. Judge Caprio, and you, sir, have reminded us all what truly matters. The piano melody returns, gentle and hopeful now. People enter Judge Caprio's courtroom with tickets, violations, and excuses, but some leave behind something else, their pain, their regret, their story. As the man picks up his hat again, he looks at Judge Caprio one last time. There's a quiet strength in his eyes. Elderly man, Your Honor, may I ask one favor before I go? Judge Caprio, of course. The man hesitates, then speaks slowly, every word measured. Elderly man, would you shake my hand? I'd like to tell my Maria that I met a good man today. A hush falls. Caprio stands up slowly, walks around the bench, and approaches the man. The camera follows their steps in slow motion. Caprio extends his hand. The old man grips it tightly, both their hands trembling. Judge Caprio, choked voice. You already have, sir. You already have. The two men hold hands for a long moment, eyes locked. Then Caprio gently pats his shoulder. The old man smiles through tears. Elderly man, softly. Thank you, Judge. I can finally rest easy. He turns, walks toward the exit slowly, the cane tapping softly, echoing through the silent courtroom. Final lines. Some verdicts aren't spoken. They're felt, deep in the soul. That day, in that small courtroom, Judge Frank Caprio didn't just hear a confession, he witnessed forgiveness. Gentle, reflective tone. No gavel had struck yet, but everyone in that room already knew a verdict had been reached. Not in the law, but in the heart. Judge Frank Caprio sits quietly, both hands clasped in front of him. The courtroom, usually filled with the hum of whispers and papers, is now completely still. He doesn't speak for several seconds. He just looks at the man, who's standing with his hat in his hand, eyes lowered. It wasn't the kind of silence that made you uneasy. It was the kind that made you feel. The kind that speaks louder than words ever could. Caprio takes a slow breath, his voice barely above a whisper. Judge Caprio. Sir, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen every kind of case, parking tickets, fines, arguments, mistakes, but I've never seen a story like yours. Judge Caprio. You know, sometimes people come here looking for mercy, and sometimes mercy walks in wearing old shoes and carrying a hat. A soft murmur passes through the audience. The old man looks up, eyes watering. Caprio leans back slightly, removes his glasses and wipes his eyes. The weight of years, of hearing thousands of stories, shows on his face. Judge Caprio, gently. Sir, the court deals with laws, but what you've reminded us of today is something far greater. Humanity. You didn't just break a traffic rule that day. You broke the rule of time, trying to make every second count before it was too late. Judge Caprio. You were not running from justice. You were running toward love. The man's eyes fill again. A young woman in the audience quietly wipes her tears. Even the clerk at the side lowers her head. It was no longer about a fine or a violation. It was about life's deepest truth, that sometimes love makes us cross red lights just to say one last word. Caprio takes a deep breath, places his glasses down, and straightens his robe. The authority in his voice returns, but softened by compassion. Judge Caprio. As for the case before this court, the charge is dismissed. Camera pans to the old man. His eyes widen slightly, but he doesn't smile. He simply nods, a silent thank you. Judge Caprio, continuing. But beyond that, I want to say this. You've given everyone in this courtroom something far more valuable than a legal lesson. You've given us a human one. He pauses, eyes glancing briefly toward the ceiling, as if searching for the right words. Judge Caprio. We all carry regrets. We all wish we could go back and fix something, but you reminded us that even in the pain, there's grace, and even in goodbye, there's love. Judge Caprio looks toward the camera, almost as if he's speaking directly to everyone watching at home. Judge Caprio, softly. If you're listening to this right now, and there's someone you love, someone you've hurt, or someone you haven't spoken to in a while, don't wait for a courtroom to remind you. Don't wait for a goodbye. Pick up the phone. Go see them. Tell them you're sorry. Tell them you love them. Life doesn't always give us second chances, but kindness does. Cut to the old man, silent tears falling. He nods slowly as if those words were meant for him alone. In that moment, the courtroom transformed, not into a place of judgment, but a place of forgiveness, a reminder that justice, when guided by compassion, heals more than it punishes. The old man turns to leave, walking slowly toward the exit. Each step echoes softly through the room, but before he exits, he stops again, turns slightly and smiles. Elderly man, quietly. Thank you, Your Honor, not for dismissing the fine, but for lifting the weight. Caprio nods, his eyes shining. A soft, peaceful smile crosses his face. Judge Caprio. Take care of yourself, sir. And when you sit by that window tonight, tell her that she's proud of you. The man presses his hat to his chest and leaves. The courtroom remains silent. No one moves until the door closes behind him. When the door shut, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a release, a moment when an old man finally forgave himself, and a judge remembered why he chose compassion over everything else. Caprio looks down at the bench, lost in thought. He takes another deep breath, steady, emotional. Judge Caprio, quietly to himself. My father once said, Frankie, always listen before you judge. You never know the roads someone had to walk just to stand before you. Judge Caprio, continuing, he was right. Every story carries a reason, and every heart deserves to be heard. It was more than a verdict. It was a reminder to every soul watching that forgiveness doesn't need a courtroom. It just needs courage. That day, Judge Frank Caprio didn't just close a case. He opened a heart. And somewhere beyond time, a woman named Maria must have smiled because the man she loved finally found peace. And the judge who heard him gave the world a lesson in humanity. When the last person left that courtroom, the silence that remained wasn't emptiness. It was peace. The kind of peace that comes after truth has been spoken and hearts have been understood. Judge Frank Caprio sits alone at his bench, his robe still neatly folded around his shoulders, but his expression is far from that of a judge. He looks like a man deep in thought. He removes his glasses, sets them down on the desk, and stares at the spot where the old man once stood. The chair across from him was empty now, but in that emptiness, there was a story that would stay with him long after the gavel was silent. Soft violin chords begin to play, slow, melancholic, almost like a whisper. Caprio leans back, exhales deeply, and looks toward the ceiling, his eyes glistening as he begins to speak softly to himself. Judge Caprio. It's strange. We pass judgment every day. We measure people by moments, not by lifetimes. But sometimes one moment is enough to remind us that everyone's fighting a battle we can't see. Caprio opens the drawer of his desk and takes out an old photograph of his own father, smiling in a simple black and white frame. He holds it gently, almost reverently. Judge Caprio, softly, you were right, Dad. You always said, listen before you judge. I thought I understood it when I started this job, but today I truly learned it. A flashback overlay appears. Faint visuals of his father teaching him as a young boy in the kitchen, the sound of laughter echoing faintly. For a moment, he wasn't a judge. He was a son remembering the man who taught him kindness before law and compassion before justice. Caprio sets the photo back down carefully. Judge Caprio, continuing, that man, he didn't just break a red light. He broke through a world that forgot how to listen. He reminded us that love, real love, doesn't end with goodbye. Camera pans slowly toward the window. Bright sunlight fills the room. Caprio turns slightly toward the camera, his expression warm but serious, like he's speaking directly to the audience. Judge Caprio, I want to say something. To those of you watching, he pauses, takes a breath. Judge Caprio, if you have someone out there who means something to you, tell them. Don't wait. Don't let pride or time or fear get in the way. Because sometimes we think we'll have tomorrow, but tomorrow isn't always promised. Judge Caprio, you don't need a courtroom to forgive. You don't need a judge to show mercy. You just need a heart that's willing to listen. Cut to shots of ordinary people. A son hugging his mother, a daughter visiting her father, a couple reconciling, an old friend writing a letter. All visuals are warm and human. It wasn't about laws anymore. It was about love, the kind that makes life worth living, the kind that makes strangers feel like family. Return to the courtroom. Caprio stands, gathering his papers slowly. He walks around the bench, standing where the old man once stood. He places his hand gently on the wooden rail, almost as if feeling the memory. Judge Caprio, quietly to himself, you reminded me why I do this, why every story matters. He looks toward the empty audience seats, his eyes soft, full of empathy. Judge Caprio, continuing, because justice without compassion is just a rule, but compassion, that's what makes us human. Camera slowly pans upward, sunlight pouring in, illuminating his face. In that light, there were no winners or losers, no guilty or innocent. Only people, trying to make sense of the world, trying to find peace in the small corners of their pain. Judge Caprio walking out of the courtroom, holding his briefcase. The echo of his footsteps fills the empty hall. He stops near the door, turns back for one last look. Judge Caprio. I hope wherever he is, he knows he wasn't just forgiven, he was understood. He walks out. The door closes. The light lingers. And maybe that's all any of us really want. Not perfection, not absolution, just to be understood. Soft piano melody returns, now joined by a faint choir hum, symbolizing closure. In a world quick to judge, be the one who listens. In a world chasing justice, be the one who gives mercy. Because sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change someone's entire story. Camera fades to Judge Caprio's smiling photo. Black and white, timeless. And that's what makes Judge Frank Caprio more than a judge. It makes him a voice of humanity. Text on screen. Every heart deserves to be heard.